We did see some player adjustments in this one, and maybe I want to get your thoughts on those, in terms of these substitutions that came into this game for the United States, just ahead of that second goal from Spain, and right around the hour mark. We got to see Crystal Dunn continue to work on her minutes and develop on time with the team. Sam Coffey came in for Andy Sullivan, and Sophia Huerta coming in for Haley Mace. Now, when we're looking at these particular positions on the pitch, Huerta for Mace, Coffey for Sullivan, Dunn for Pickett, would you say that these were some of the areas that desperately sort of needed some attention, going into this deeper into this second half? Because we were looking at that, that first goal didn't necessarily give an indication that the United States were going to, have the wheels fall off of them. But we definitely saw Spain continue their game plan. They were trying to exploit some things along the wings there.
Yeah, so this is like a double-edged sword for me, because watching this game, I felt that there was it was flat. There was a lack of energy in the midfield and the front six. I'm going to be honest, the front six of the United States players, and the back four were put under a lot of pressure. And they were newer, right? You have Pickett there, you have Mace. Of course, Sauerbrunn is a huge veteran, but you do have a little bit of newness across that back line in dealing with this Spain side. And I don't think that the front six did any favors to the back four in their defensive efforts. So initially heading into the halftime, I was like, okay, maybe we'll see some frontline adjustments, right? Or maybe even a midfield adjustments just to get some fresh blood in there, right? To change it up, because as a player sitting on the sideline, standing next to your coach, assistant coaches all around you, you're learning so much about what's happening on the game, where the spaces are, how things can happen, because Spain rolled out there with a 5 back and the United States had trouble breaking that down, right? Their shots on goal were 0 heading into the 60-minute mark. And to give Spain a lot of defensive credit, they held the United States at arm's length. So then when we go into this substitution period for Vlatko Andonovski, and he does rotate out Mace and Pickett and Sullivan, the big defensive players, as Sullivan in that defensive 6 role, and then your outside backs, I was like, yeah, I mean, these players are not doing great. They're being put under a ton of pressure in the flanks of the pitch. Spain is doing a great job, combination play, attacking the wide areas of the field. Pickett and Mace are just under a lot of pressure. They're not able to get forward. They're not able to join in the attack. So in terms of that, yes, those were players, and that's where there was a lot of pressure on the field. But I think there was an opportunity for Vlatko Andonovski to rotate in some players higher up the pitch earlier in the game to kickstart the defensive efforts from the very front line. That would have been a valve release on the pressure that the outside backs were facing. And that's kind of where my mind was watching this match.
No, I feel you 100%, because we're looking at, like, I'm listening to you talk, and I'm like replaying the second goal in my mind, like listening to you talk about this. It's like having lyrics to a song, quite frankly. So I'm just kind of, you were watching this second goal come to life, and again, just looking for that answer or that adjustment. I think that was a big question mark coming into this game, out of that England game specifically, about the middle third. That there was an element of the United States midfield kind of getting bullied a little bit, quite frankly, out of that England game, and not maybe necessarily having the response, inadequate enough of a response, in that middle third. And I think, watching Andy Sullivan a bit during this game, I felt it was a little bit of a better performance out of that first game against England. But I'm also equally impressed with Sam Coffey and her ability to come in and try to sort of spearhead some things as well. It's definitely a bit of a question mark, in light of many players out and missing from the national team program at this moment. We did talk about, yes, how there wasn't an Alex Morgan or a Mallory Pugh, but just listening to Andonovski before this actual game, and media and prior media availability going into this Spain game specifically, mentioning and noting how there are players unavailable for this match, and proceeded to go down a very long list outside of Alex Morgan and Pugh, but went on to mention, players like Katarina Macario not being in this, Tierna Davidson not being part of this group, Lynn Williams not being part of this group, Sam Mewis not being part of this group. And that's understandable. But at the same time, like, listening to this, it's kind of like, well, there's also no real updates at this current timeline for these particular players. So this is the group moving forward. And what we've seen in some NWSL matches out of some clubs, that if the system is working and in place, you're able to slot in players in and out as you see fit, because the system is in play and it is something that they can fall into. I don't know at this point if we're seeing that with this team, especially coming out of these two games. I think there's an angle and a level of this where we're not trying to be super critical in light of these two games and the week that they took place in. The mental fatigue that these players have to endure on what feels like a month-to-month basis at this point is unreal. The fact that they have required that of themselves, to compartmentalize everything in order to function as a professional soccer player on the pitch, is unreal. It's something that you wouldn't ask of their male counterparts, but it is asked of them what feels like month to month. So I am not in any way trying to have us like come on here and be like, oh, like, let's be super critical of the fact that these are the two back-to-back losses. It's the first time there's been two back-to-back losses in 5 years. One of these losses was a shutout. There's going to be heavy emphasis on this, but there are all these other underlying factors within these two losses, I think, that we saw on this pitch as well. I think it's one thing to sort of go from an England game where you had the buildup of these two heavyweights and the environment of Wembley Stadium and the over 75,000 people who were there, and the fact that they did score, the fact that Trinity Rodman had a disallowed goal, like there was a level of excitement there, and then to sort of see this team going up against Spain, another federation that is currently going through some things with players of their own. Just sort of the energy was just a bit different in this one. And for a United States women's national team program that has prided themselves on the mentality factor being their X factor compared to other programs, I think we saw over these games what can happen if that looks fractured or broken.
Yeah, I mean, I want to echo this and kind of take something that hasn't been released yet. But we spoke with a player this week about everything that had happened, and this player saying, "I don't know how, but the league scheduled this, so we had off right now. I couldn't even imagine juggling a ball right now." And she gave props to the players at the international level, saying, "I don't know how they are competing right now. I don't know how." And this is a player that had an off week with her NWSL team. So the fact that these players went out there and still competed, and I assure you that they are hard on themselves in terms of the play that they put out there, because these are professionals. This is their job. This is their dream, to play for their country, especially 10 months out from a World Cup, and to be able to get caps and get minutes. And I think that was something that Vlatko Andonovski was trying to do with this group, is get them more experience, because it was an incredibly inexperienced group when you look at them, because Mace 7 caps, Carson Pickett 2 caps, both of those players started this game, and we are criticizing, right, the Pickett and Mace, saying that they were put under a lot of pressure in the outside flanks area, and Spain attacked them and went at them, but right, they got their 8th and 3rd cap respectively between those two. So this was a group that Vlatko Andonovski wanted to give them experience playing against top competitors, right? Spain ranked number 8 heading into this match. And yes, 15 players were missing from this game, but they're still an incredibly good team. They talked about how their U20s won the World Cup and everything else in terms of that leading down. Their youth program is incredibly tough and good. And this is a team that wanted to go out there and think of those young players on Spain wanting to say, hey, I went up against the United States and I won this game. But the United States and this team, everything that they've been through, and then to go out onto the pitch, they're hard on themselves for these 2 losses, for sure. I know it, because the clock is ticking, and in 10 months' time, they will be in Australia and they will be in New Zealand competing in a World Cup. And there's a lot to be done on and off the pitch before we get to that point.
Absolutely.